So my guests and I bring you messages to establish what you need to know in the present. And also, I like working with angels, the calmness they bring. Now, in a moment, I will introduce you to my wonderful guest, Sarah Atkins. But before that, I'd like to say thank you so much for you watching this show live or at a later date, as it means a lot to me to connect with like-minded women. Now, if you've never met before, then my name is Rae, and I'm a transformational coach and trainer who will assist you to heal your past, create your future, transform your present, so that you can take charge of your destiny in the here and now. I'm the founder of Radiant Angel Energy, and I use angelic Reiki, future life progression, past life regression, guided meditation, and angel oracle cards to assist you if you feel lost to get clear on your reason for being here. I've also created several transformational packages, a journey through lifetimes, as well as a 6-week guided meditation series to help you gain the confidence to take charge of your destiny. Now, each episode of this show covers various themes of your journey, a mini guided meditation or an angel oracle card reading with the wisdom of my wonderful guests, like today's guest, Sarah Atkins, who will be sharing about using human design as a tool to discover who you are meant to be. Now, Sarah is an ICF accredited coach, quantum human design specialist, and human design coach. Through a wake up call, Sarah realized that she was out of alignment spiritually, mentally, physically, and emotionally. So had to make a change to become who she was meant to be. Now, using human design as a coaching tool, Sarah is passionate about guiding lost souls back to their life path and reconnecting with their purpose. She helps her clients to embrace their uniqueness, love their true self, harness their energy to create flow and find alignment. With testimonials such as, I feel more resilient and am able to process emotions more effectively in order to achieve balance. I am learning to work in alignment with my human design, and everyone who knows me has seen a total behavior transformation. I am calmer, more composed, and able to go with the flow. I feel like my energy went from crazed to desperate to being at ease and accepting without expectation. So, without further delay, hello, Sarah, and welcome to the Angels of Destiny show. How are you today?
I'm great, Rae. Thank you. I'm definitely benefiting from the sunshine that we've had this weekend. It shifts the energy so much.
Oh,
Um,
it totally does. And it just makes you feel so much calmer.
Definitely.
So, before we get into this fascinating conversation, I want to remind you that not only can you share this video, but you can also ask questions, leave comments and thoughts live or on the replay, as both Sarah and I want to be part of this conversation. So, please don't be shy. So, Sarah, why don't you tell us more about your journey, your wake up call, and how we can use human design as a tool to discover who we were meant to be?
Yeah, I'd love to. I've had a few wake up calls in my life. The first one probably occurring around 2008, where I had a bit of a health wake up call. I'd realised that I'd kind of trapped myself in a life. To everybody else on the outside, I had this amazing life, had an amazing career in the fashion industry. I was traveling all over the world. I, like, to everybody else, I had this like perfect life, but I was utterly miserable. Um, I was kind of got myself in this cycle of overworking, overgiving, trying really hard to prove myself, to prove my worth. And I was just really grinding myself into the ground. And in November 2008, I found myself, I'd ignored a few health warnings and I ended up in hospital for 2 weeks. I ended up developing sepsis when I was in hospital. So it was like really touch and go. And I remember when I kind of started getting back on the mend and the doctor came to see me and I said, like, how long I was so stressed out about how much time I'd had off work. I was like, when can I get back to work? And he's like, no, Sarah, you're not listening. Like, you're going to be signed off for 12 weeks.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, and literally felt like the bottom had fallen out of my world. Like, never mind the sort of near death kind of thing. I was like, oh, what do you mean I can't go back to work for 12 weeks? They're going to fire me. I was so stressed. Now, obviously, that in that particular state, I wasn't thinking rationally. Obviously, I know nobody would fire me for being off, like, logically, but I was
Yeah.
in this kind of weird state. This is the state of my mental health, I suppose, at that point. That's how I now retrospectively that I was in a burnout. So enforced into like having that time allowed me to kind of just have a bit of space. Up until that point, I think I'd been afraid to be still.
Mm.
I'm not entirely sure what I was afraid of. Maybe if I'd stopped long enough, then I would have realised how unhappy I was. But, you know, you kind of get into that sort of rat race cycle of just kind of keep doing the churn. So I would say that was probably quite a pivotal time for me in terms of self-reflection. And that's when I realised I had to face up to the fact that I was really miserable. And I started exploring some options. And that's not easy to kind of admit to yourself that actually you're really miserable in where you are in this sort of situation. I almost felt like I'd kind of got this golden handcuffs thing going on. Anyway, so that's probably the start of my personal development journey. Then my next wake up, I suppose, was having children. If anybody has had children, it kind of rocks your world, turns it upside down, inside out, and all of a sudden, just I've never questioned myself in so much, just second guessing and just questioning whether I'm doing things right or wrong, or like, you know, it was just this really weird dynamic of all of a sudden everything I thought that was certain was just not certain anymore. Mm. But I also realised that my eldest, who is now 11, he'll be 12 this year, this realisation of I just wanted him to be happy ultimately. And like he can be whoever he wants to be, he can do whatever he wants to do. It's just he's got the core thing is just be happy and find like the things that he loves to do. And then that sort of second stage kind of questioning, well, hang on a minute. The best way he's going to learn that is by modeling it. And yes. I am not modeling this. I'm still not modeling it. So again, so in that period from 2008 to 2020, so quite a long journey. I take a while to process things. Meandering around, I've had 2 career changes where I was kind of just testing things out, I suppose. And it's funny because in 2020, human design found me. And I didn't realise it was going to lead me, obviously, to where I am today. And it certainly I didn't intend it to be part of my business. But it kind of became a thing. And the reason it found me, I was training as a coach. I didn't actually realise when I trained as a coach formally that it would help me in my parenting quite so much. Now, parenting for me, I have 3 boys, 2 of which have now been diagnosed formally with as being autistic, which I think I always knew on some kind of level. They've always been different. And not in a really obvious way, because they mask incredibly well. All 3 of my boys are highly intelligent, academically perform really well. But there's always been something challenging, like socially, emotionally. Parenting for me has always been for us as a family, it's quite intense. It can be quite intense, and energy and stuff like that. So I was already on this. I wanted to understand them, to support them better, to help them access the world better. I was already on that journey. One of my past careers was a teacher, so I understood a little bit about special educational needs and things like that. And I was talking to a friend, and somebody suggested, or maybe my eldest in particular, maybe he's highly sensitive. And I didn't know what that was. So I then started doing some research into highly sensitive children, came across the term indigo children, had looked at his astrology chart, and he does come under that band of indigo. He's got a Chiron in Pisces, the poor soul. So that's quite challenging when I looked into that. So he's highly emotionally sensitive. And then human design. And I was in a group program, and human design, I attended a series of seminars. It took a while. Like, it wasn't until the third one I thought, you know what? I think there might be something in this. I'm going to look at his chart. And holy moly, like everything just kind of fell into place. And it doesn't tell you, it doesn't diagnose, it doesn't do all of those things, but what it did was it gave me an additional understanding of his energy, how he operates, where some of his vulnerabilities are energetically. And I mean, he's for anybody that doesn't know, or anybody that doesn't know about human design, there are 5 different energy types, and human design is the science of differentiation. It celebrates your uniqueness. So at a foundational level, there are 5 human design types. Yes, this isn't about putting people in boxes, though. It isn't about labeling people. We have the potential in our human design, in our chart, to experience all of the energy.
Right.
But how we express it is determined by our experiences, the conditioning that we receive, like from parenting, childhood, teachers, experiences that we have. And it can change and alter, and it's constantly being impacted by the people that come into our aura, the planetary transits. So it's constantly changing, constantly evolving. And one of the things that's really interesting about my eldest son is he's a generator type, and they are highly energetic. Naturally, they generate a certain amount of creative energy within. The other thing that's quite interesting about him is we have 9 energetic centers in human design in the body graph, but he is only defined in 2 of them. And where he has so much openness in his chart, he's constantly absorbing and amplifying the energy of the collective, basically. And how that manifests in him, he comes across as being highly emotional. He can be quite volatile. He can be really sensitive he's highly intuitive. Like, he picks up on other people's thoughts and fears. He can get overwhelmed very, very easily. He picks up on mental pressure, root center pressure. He's open in all of these areas. And like I said, when I saw his chart and I'd understood a little bit more about myself, and seeing his chart, I was like, oh, that is him.
Yeah.
And I just felt like I could see him all of a sudden. And that's just one aspect of, I mean, I then went on further down the rabbit hole, did the charts for all of my family, and looking at the dynamics of our family household, I suppose. I'm a generator, I'm an emotional generator. My husband and my eldest son are pure generators, so they make their decisions through their sacral, but they are both empaths. So with me being emotional, I trigger emotions. Now, I have 3 boys in my house. There's me and my youngest, who are emotionally defined, and then my husband and 2 of my boys are empathic. So you can imagine what's going on energetically.
Bit of a dynamic there.
Yeah, with 3 empaths, they're like amplifying this emotional energy and reflecting it around. And it's like, okay. So one of the key things that I now know is when the emotional energy is happening, whereas I used to go, oh my God, what's wrong with you? It's like, oh, okay, I need to check in with myself. What am I triggering? So I need to disperse my emotional energy better. So I'm a lot more physical. I go out and run. And it's funny because giving them the language as well. Like, my eldest son will say, oh, are you okay? I'm feeling this. Like, he now knows that it's not necessarily his emotion.
Yeah.
And lockdown was like a huge thing for him, because he actually carried on going to lockdown school because he needs that structure, and
Yeah.
the school recognised that. And he was so excited about all the kids returning from lockdown, but that first day where everybody was back was a nightmare for him. He was so excited, but so was everybody else, and he was just amplifying their excitement, and it was just such a overwhelming, like he just had a sort of mental physical kind of implosion, and it was all just too much for him. But again, I mean, that was at the beginning of when I was understanding, and it's that journey from 2 years ago when human design found me, how that has transformed our understanding of each other as a family and what our needs are. It's been amazing. And things are so much calmer. I'm not saying obviously like it gets intense, of course it does. And but we are able to, like, their resilience is so much better. Like another example is my youngest son, bless him, he's a projector type, which is a non-energy type. And they can, so poor little soul, he's like mixing with a lot of, like, we're all high energy types, the rest of us. I've got a mani-gen, 3 generators, and then a projector. So how that manifests in itself in its physical form is like my older 2 sons dropped their naps at the age of 2, like didn't need them, don't need sleep, they're
Yeah.
fine, they're like Duracell bunnies. Whereas he literally will still sometimes, he started school in September, when he's around lots of people, he's fine because he's running on their energy, he's
Yeah.
borrowing their energy to keep him going. As soon as we get home from school, he flops in the chair, bless him, that's it, he doesn't move. Sometimes he will fall asleep, and he's 5.
Yeah.
We go out on family days out, he's always the one that's asleep in the car on the way home. So we have to factor that in, that, and we always see it in term time. He starts the school term, full of beans, really enthusiastic, really excited. About 2 or 3 weeks before the end of term, that's it, he's done. He's spent, to be honest, he could probably do with only doing like a 2 or 3 day school week,
Yeah.
because he gets so tired. So we have to factor in his energy levels, and it's trying to manage those things. But he's a lot happier, and his confidence has soared since we understand what his energetic needs are now.
Yeah. Cool. And Malik here says, I think an empath too. I don't like crowded places. And she also says, is so how do you find out what energy type you are? So how does human design work?
So human design it draws on sort of ancient wisdom. So it uses your astrological birth data. So you input, I think there's a link on my website actually. If not, I can share one in the show notes where you can download a free chart. You need your date of birth, your place of birth, and your time to the nearest 30 minutes if possible. If you don't know that exactly, I can run a series of charts. What I do is I run a series of charts across different times of day, and there are certain bits of information that I can share with you, and then we'll see what you can connect with. There are other people out there, astrologers. I don't know anybody personally, but in some human design groups that can do birth correction like charts. They can, it's some kind of thing that they do, that they can correct your time. But I've definitely run charts for people that weren't 100% sure, they didn't have their exact time because parents are no longer around, or it's not actually traditionally on
The birth
birth
certificate.
certificates. So yeah, it does rely on your parents telling you. But yeah, so what I do for clients that have that is that I do like a time check and look at what changes in the chart, and then anything that does change we will kind of talk through, and I kind of follow my intuition on those things really. And it's what connects with you, because like I said, you aren't your chart, like you are who you are, and it's what connects with you. That's the important thing with that. And not, I mean, because it's based on planetary movement, obviously it depends. Like the sun doesn't tend to move a huge amount like within the 24-hour period, so the gates won't change in that activation. It's just the other more subtle things that change.
Yeah. So,
So, and
yeah,
it,
Malik says, I don't know my time.
yeah, no, a lot of people don't, and like I said, I've had a lot of clients that don't. Another person, we used a pendulum to kind of try and narrow it down a little bit as well, and then I ran some more charts just to double check. So there are definitely ways around it. So it uses astrology, but it also uses the Chinese I Ching, the Book of Changes, the Kabbalah, and the chakra system, and it all kind of feeds in, and it creates what we call the body graph, which is basically it's your energetic blueprint, and it's, some people call it a roadmap. I think that's too prescriptive. I like to say that it's a chart of, shows your potential. And ultimately we all have choices. Like there's shadow elements, there's light elements. There is no right or wrong in your chart. It's what you choose to pick up and kind of run with. But it does help. A lot of my clients have said that it's quite life affirming. So quite often when I'm doing a chart reading, I don't know what I can read a chart, I can tell you what I see. I don't know if it's right or wrong, or whether it's going to resonate with people or not. A lot of the time I get told it's life affirming, or it's just confirmed what people already knew. So I'm generally not telling you what you don't know, because at a core level, I do believe you do know.
Yeah.
It just raises the awareness that that is what is there. And it's
Yeah.
up to you whether you pick it up and run with it or not.
Yeah, which makes sense. And Malik says, yes, I was wondering whether a pendulum was used to.
Yeah, you can absolutely use a pendulum, and that's worked really well with a couple of my clients as well.
Yeah, that always does work. So it's really, interesting in that I suppose once you kind of like know why you sort of like react to certain things at a
Yeah.
time, why that, it's actually kind of like quite comforting going, phew, so there's nothing wrong with me actually. I'm actually just following what my blueprint is.
100%. So I shared at the beginning of when we started talking, like I've had 2 or 3 career changes. Now, one of the things that kind of had then formed in my belief system is that I come across as a bit flaky. I've changed a few times. And then in my human design chart, I discovered that I am a line 3 profile. I'm a 3/5 actually, but my conscious line 3 is the experimenter. I need to immerse myself in life. That's how I learn. You could tell me what I should be doing. You could tell me the right way to do. I'm not going to listen until I've tested it out and tried it myself. I knew that about myself, but then to have that, I was like, oh, well, that just makes sense. Of course. Like, is that not what everybody does? And it was just this really funny, like, oh, okay. So, and basically, my line 5 is another word for it. It's known as the coach, basically, which is quite funny that, I've only been coaching in a business for 2 years out of my 41 years on this planet.
Yeah.
I got there eventually, but I had to do all the experimenting first. And basically, the coach is coaching from experience. Everything that I would coach you on, or everything that I bring to my sessions, is based on lived experience.
Yeah, no, that makes absolute sense. And you can kind of like see, how this really would work with families that are having issues.
Yeah.
And especially, I suppose, families that have children, or even, adults on the autistic spectrum would would really help, because you'll then understand what the triggers are.
Yes. And that's the thing. Like, so for this, I've got a perfect example of that this weekend with my eldest son. Actually, he can go into catastrophic thinking very, very quickly, and sometimes as a parent, you're like, I don't know how to get you out of this. I've definitely been there. And I did have a slight wobble on Friday because I thought, I don't know, like it's 8 o'clock at night. I've got to put his brothers to bed because they're a lot younger than him. And he's having like this catastrophic meltdown. Like, what do I do? Anyway, when we got down to it, he's like I said, he's 11, but he thinks very, very deeply. It's his part of his sensitivity. It's part of his ASD. And we, ironically, one of the things that he was saying is like, I just don't see the point. I don't know what I'm here for. I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know what my path is. I was like, okay, you're 11. You don't need to worry about this yet, but okay. So what I did was I shared his chart with him, and I just picked out, I didn't share the whole thing because
Yeah.
it's not all, I don't want to overwhelm him, but because I was picking on his language. And one of the things that he kept saying is, I'm no good at anything. Now, one of the gates that he has, which is funny because I also have it, it's gate 48. It's in the splenic center, so it's in our fear center, survival center. But the shadow aspect of this gate 48 is the shadow of inadequacy. So he holds on to, or one of his vulnerabilities is, I'm not good enough. I don't know enough. It's just the not enoughness, basically, which shouts really loudly to him. And when I kind of explained that to him, he was like, oh, that's exactly how I feel. I was like, I can sense that from you. And then, so that was one aspect that we shared. And then we looked at his conscious sun, which is gate 29. I can't remember off the top of my head what that actually was, but that's connected to your life path and your purpose. And one of the things that he is here to do is he's got really strong ideals about the things that interest him. Now, funnily enough, this comes up in his ASD assessment. He's very interested in his things. And when he's interested in something, he loves to talk about it. He's not really interested in anybody else. So he can have a one-sided conversation. In fact, a lot of his conversations are one-sided. And if you're not invested in what he's interested in, he kind of loses interest and moves off. And it's funny because that's one of the things that comes up in his autistic diagnosis. Like, he can't do the social interaction thing. He's only interested in what he's interested in. And then you read that and you're like, yeah. So, and when I sort of explained that to him, he's like, oh, so I just need to follow what I love then. And I was like, yeah, find your thing and just keep looking. You don't have to know it right now. And he's like, oh, awesome. So even those kind of explanations sort of brought the emotional stuff, it soothed the emotion to a point where he was then able to go, okay, he's grounded, which he does need a lot of support with grounding because he has an undefined root center. I also need grounding. So we need physical activity. We need to connect with nature. Meditation is a big thing for him. And yeah, just talking him through that information just calmed everything.
Wow, that's absolutely amazing that, it can give you an idea, on your life purpose as well, whether you got to try lots of things or just focus on one
Yeah.
thing. And that's really
Could you
interesting.
imagine if we were all given this permission to be ourselves when we were children? Could you imagine how amazing this world would
It
be?
it would, yeah. I mean, I always bang on about, meditation, part of your antenatal classes, meditation,
Yeah,
part of the birthing process, meditation, when the baby's born, meditation, school, meditation,
yeah,
and that there's so much we could, um, help children with, where they wouldn't have any of the issues that we've had to deal with.
yeah, 100%. And that's very connected to my purpose, funnily enough. My purpose is in gate 46, which is all about self-love, self-compassion, showing people, like truly seeing people for who they are and helping them to appreciate who they are and guiding them that way. And yes, Malik, 100% they need to do more mindfulness and meditation in school. It should just be a core piece of the curriculum.
Yeah, exactly. And Malik says it's really interesting. It looks at birth chart. So she's had a soul plan reading that uses your birth name.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
curious about
yeah, yeah. I think I've had a soul plan
that.
reading. Yeah, I have, and it uses your birth name. So even if you've changed your name, you kind of like have to use your birth name.
It's funny, isn't it? Because we were having a conversation this weekend actually, because the boys wanted to know what their meanings of their names are, and we look back at. I mean, when you type in a name, a lot of the meanings come up,
Mm,
but we've gone with quite traditional names, really. Like my name is very traditional, Hebrew origin, um, and but it's still got like lots of different meanings, essentially, like in that they sort of change, well they kind of stay the same, but they use different words and languages obviously as things have moved
yeah,
on. But mine's a Hebrew name, and it stands, well, in Hebrew it's princess, in English it's noble woman, I think.
well, there you
Yeah, I've always said I was meant for higher things.
go.
But yeah, I think it's it's all part of the learning journey, and I know a lot of stuff, like I was brought up, I guess things have changed. Like my line 3, if you think about my profile, the experimenter, the one that's supposed to try and do and experiment and change. And the reason I have thought or believed that I was quite flaky is because, like, I was of a generation where you kind of, it was like my parents got a job and they kind of stayed in it,
Yeah,
didn't really change. So that was what was modeled to me. And it's kind of seen almost like as a failure thing.
mm,
And I have, I mean, one of my shadows is like perfectionist tendencies, which kind of completely, like in everybody's chart, there's like friction. And one of the frictions that I have is like this perfectionist, but also I'm meant to experiment and learn through failure. So I had this for years, I've had this kind of friction in my chart and I didn't know it and I didn't understand it. So then you kind of get into this mindset of mentally beating yourself up because you failed at something, but actually you haven't, because that's part of your process. And just
yeah.
understanding that has been a massive game changer.
And yeah, it sounds it's something that you kind of think, my God, I really want to, I really want to find out about this. So please do share the link for
Yes, I will.
where people can actually try it. And Malik says, do you send the readings via email, or is it a booked phone messenger call?
Yeah, so I conduct readings. I do 90-minute readings and I do them over Zoom. And what I do is I record them because, and I'm sure Rae, you'll understand this with your angel readings and things like that, we can't possibly retain and absorb all of the information. People need to hear it back, because each time you hear it, there is something different that comes through. And then I also give everybody, anybody that books, a PDF, like a lovely, really nicely designed, because I did it, PDF report of like the sort of basic, the stuff that we talk about. But it means you've got a reference point. You can go back and scribble on it and make notes and things like that. And that's something that you can kind of keep referring back to as well.
Yeah, no, that sounds really good. And I mean, oh, Alex says, I'm so glad it's recorded.
It
Yeah,
needs to
that
be.
that's the beauty of Zoom these days. You know, and even if you go for a reading, you know, you can record now on your phone. You know, I remember, you know, going for readings or you know, or giving readings where you had the old, and a few people who watch this show,
Yeah,
and we
dictaphone.
actually use something called a cassette deck.
Yeah,
Or, you know, we recorded it on tape.
yeah. I think I've actually got, I don't think I've got the cassette anymore, but I went for a reading, gosh, it must be 20 years ago now, and I had the cassette recording of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually doing some clearing out the other day, and I actually came across some recorded tapes, you know, of readings from years ago, and it's like probably never even going to see what they are again.
No, it's so bizarre, isn't it? We've lost it. My, You know, when you're old, when your child comes to you and says, "What's a cassette then?" Oh no,
I know.
that,
Malik's on the same wavelength as us.
yes.
Remembers we
Glad we're
called it.
not alone.
Which is always good when people do remember those things. So, as you know, I do guided meditations, angel oracle card readings, and each week I like to ask my guests whether they would like me to do a mini guided meditation or pull an angel oracle card for themselves and those watching. So, Sarah, what would you like me to do?
So I'm a bit of a sucker for oracle cards. I'd love an angel card, please.
Okay, funny enough, I have the cards right in my hand.
There we go.
Amazing, that isn't it? So when I do readings, I do it for what you need to know for your highest good at this moment in time, because everything I work with is for your present, because your present is what you need to concentrate on. So although I work with future life progression, when we go into the future, it's so you know what your future is doing, so you're not worried in the present. And when we go back to the past, you heal and understand your past so it doesn't affect you in the present. So let's see. What does Sarah and everyone who's watching this live on the oh, okay. That one was coming out, whether we wanted it or not. Joy and delight. Open your heart to joy.
Oh, I love that.
Isn't that a gorgeous card?
Beautiful.
And it's, and again, it resonates with what we've been talking about, with the human design, and that we are here for joy and delight. Life is, and when you realize, why you react and act in certain ways, you can then bring that joy,
Yeah.
and delight back. So yeah, so basically this is really confirmation for you, Sarah, of what you're actually doing, you know and that you're able to help other people open their hearts to joy, to find that magic, that fairy like quality that just brings in joy, delight, and magic and bliss into their life. So it's really wonderful that card's come out for you. And again, for everyone who's watching this live on a replay, it's saying to you, open your hearts to joy, because when you open your hearts to joy, it's amazing what magical, sparkly things come in. And I'm a sucker for sparkly things.
Ditto.
It's like, oh, sparkles.
Absolutely.
And Malik says, beautiful card. Yeah, it is a very, very beautiful card. So, yeah, so everyone remember, open your heart, and find out, why you act in a certain way, or why things around you act in a certain way, because once you realize that, you can literally open your heart to joy. So, Sarah, do you have any insights or thoughts to leave our viewers?
I would say embrace all of you, like even the messy stuff, the light, the dark, the messy middle. We all have it. It's part of our human experience. It's part of what makes us who we are. And we can, by raising our self-awareness, looking and exploring those dark bits, you can still harness that energy and like bring it into your everyday, and like you say, find the joy.
Yeah, absolutely. So I hope everyone, you've enjoyed this conversation and found it insightful, because I definitely know I have. Didn't know about human design. Definitely going to be checking it out. So Sarah, if people want to connect with you, how do they do that?
Yeah, so I'm mostly on Instagram, which is sarah.m.atkins. That's my handle there. I have a website which is sarahAtkinsdesign.com. And I do have a mailing list as well. So I do share kind of resources and information. And like I said, I do offer 90-minute chart readings. So you can find me on Instagram and you can book those chart readings through there, or you can just message me. I love connection is a really big thing for me, which is in my chart. Again, so I love conversations. I love connecting with people. That's really important to me, and it's good for my soul, good for my energy. And yeah.
Brings joy and delight.
It does.
And Alex said it's really interesting. And what I'll do is I'll put those links into the comments, so you can just literally click onto it. Um, and then yes, Sarah, if you can share that link that you've got, that would
Yes,
be
I will do.
absolutely
Yeah.
absolutely wonderful. So thank you, Sarah, so much for being on the show and sharing your wisdom. It's been absolutely wonderful having you as a guest and giving us something new that we didn't even really know about.
I know it's part of my mission to kind of share this. And like I said, could you imagine how powerful this world will be if we can just share it more and more?
And family dynamic, you,
Yeah.
you can just imagine family dynamics changing so much.
Yeah. Amazing.
It'll be amazing. So, if any of you have reached a crossroads in your life and you need some guidance in finding the meaning of your life, or where you're supposed to be on your spiritual journey, then I would love to be that guide for you. So, please feel free to reach out and connect with me, and we can arrange a free clarity video call to discuss where you are at now and how you can move forwards and take charge of your destiny. And please feel free to join my weekly newsletter and receive a free future life progression recording where I take you into the future to get some guidance and clarity that you can use in your current life, as well as a couple of other free gifts. So thank you so much everyone for watching, and I'd like to invite you to share this video, as I'm sure there are more women who feel lost and want to get clear on their destiny just like you. And of course, if you're watching this on YouTube, then please do feel free to subscribe and hit the bell button to be notified of when the show goes live or I post new guided meditations. And I look forward to seeing you all same time, same place next week. Take care. Bye.
Bye.